Dear Braidwood family, we'd like to introduce ourselves to you as we gather to honor John Braidwood. My name's Dave Neff. I live here in Fairfield, Iowa.
My name is John Blackstock, and I live in West Bradenton, Florida.
John Braidwood was a one-of-a-kind individual. We didn't know each other when we were students. Of course, there were 5,000 students at Parsons back in the 60s at that time. But in 2003, there was a Parsons reunion in Fairfield, Iowa. At that time, Mayor Bob Rasmussen had met John before I did at the Elks Lodge. And he said, Dave, he says, you probably don't know John, but I would like for you to listen closely to his presentation because I think there's something there that you might want to be thinking about. I listened closely, and following his presentation, I introduced us to each other, and for the last 19 years, we've been very close friends.
Yeah. Well, as you can pretty well see here, the reason we're here is because we cannot be in Queensberry, Hickory, whatever the ski resort. So we did the next best thing. We decided to have a special John Braidwood Tribute Day here. And in case you hadn't figured it out yet, this is the chair of the man that we're missing. And
during our reunions and Wall of Honor, there were only 3 people that had green coats, 1, 2, and 3. And we could always be found in the audience or at our receptions, and people could track us down if they had questions. John and I were able to keep close contact through those years. He invited Sherry and I to come up to Traverse City, Michigan, and we were able to spend some time up in the sand dunes and see where his place was up there.
Well, I got off on the rocky parking lot of the Dream Motel where maybe he told you, maybe he didn't, but he worked there during his college days to supplement his expenses or his income. This guy's walking down, it's just as astute as you could imagine, erect as, a pencil. And he's got this really, really neat plaid shirt on. You know, the sun's beaming off this beautiful, like a head of hair he had up there. And we meet, and he says, do you want to buy a brick? And I said, do I want to buy a brick? I said, well, I'm not too busy today, but I'm not interested in buying a brick. Well, John Braidwood was actually beginning the promotional efforts towards the convention center, of which he was such an instrumental factor, an impact player. The price of the brick he was trying to sell me in the parking lot of the Dream Hotel was $500. Now, $500 back in those days was quite a bit of money. So I didn't buy a brick that day. I didn't like John Braidwood that day, but I got to know John. John hooked me up with Dave Neff, and the rest is history. We became fabulous friends. I was privileged to go to Sarasota Springs, to Melton Circle. I met Valerie, his significant other, and I was delighted to meet his ex-wife, Susan, who is a very delightful person, and it was a pleasure. I think when it all was said and done, John was impacting the total amount to the Parsons contingent affiliates contributed was like $235,000. And I think that was the real impetus behind John doing this, was he knew if we could raise our certain amount of money, that they would put us and allow us space in this, which would live hopefully for as long as this convention center lives, which we hope to be for a mighty long time.
Well, as we said, we first met John, and he had a vision for the foundation, but he also stood up and said, I would be happy to help with your Parsons Alumni Association, and he has been a memorial piece of that. We, later on in this presentation, you will have from our last Zoom quarterly meeting of the Alumni Association, you'll have snippets from each of the members, and a little bit later on, John and I will read from folks that couldn't be on that Zoom call. The third member of our trio, John Blackstock, he was the one that had the vision for this Wall of Honor, and to honor over a 10-year period 100 of our alumni. John's been very active in the North Hills Association in Pittsburgh, the high school he grew up from, and came to Parsons back in the early 60s. But Over this 10-year period, we've been able to honor 100 alumni, and they have come from all parts of the country and have been very much engaged in this. We looked last night at our 2018, which was our final year when John and John were both inducted, and we had 33 members of the Wall of Honor who came back to Fairfield to be here for that event.
And that was pretty damn awesome. That was a collection of major success attributed to Parsons College. And I don't want to take credit for this necessarily, but I will give the three of us credit that John Braidwood, Dave Neff, and my love for Parsons College and dedication and loyalty is what made a lot of this happen, because we stuck together like gorilla glue, and we made it happen, and we created the excitement and the recognition to bring these people back and make it a treasured event every year for 10 years.
Back in the 50s, you had Larry, Curly, and Mo, and we all had the green jackets on. John always had something special to contribute to Alumni Association. He would always ask questions and would allow the board to dig deep into their memory and say, what should we do? So it was a joint effort of this Alumni Association looking forward to the future. His personal community service, the family is of course aware with Big Brothers organization and many other community-based, but afforded his love for humankind to be shared with the next generation. He really was a very, very loving and caring person for his community.
That's for damn sure. And not only that, but I would tell you that he was the most meticulous, articulate, focused, driven, great listener, organizer, doer person that I think I have known, one of the best I've known in my life. And he was a spark plug. He could come in and he'd look at a situation, he'd look at what's happening, he'd listen, always listened, and then he would have something positive and supplementary to add to that to make it better. He just had a way of doing that. It was really unique. And he was always so sensitive about people's feelings, and he'd get his words organized, and then he'd fire it on out, and by golly, John, that's a great idea. How do I know so much about this? Because as a publisher and editor of the Alumni E-News, John was an MVP. I don't know if you all know about this or not, but John was a writer. And John liked to introduce new things to people to get them excited and watch their exuberance whenever it was announced and presented. But John wrote a quarterly column in the paper. It was called, "I Bet You Didn't Know." And during the time between the quarters, John would do the research, and he would dig out something from the annals of Parsons or Roberts or Lewis Baldwin Parsons, the founder. He would dig out some little things that nobody ever knew, and he would write them, color them up. We'd supply the pictures and add to it whatever. John Braidwood had the most popular piece and column and article in that newsletter. And when that went down at the end of the 10 years and whatever, he's probably the most missed ingredient, because he just kept on. And what a plus he was, what a star, and what a great friend.
One other thing that might not be known to the family, of course, Clint was here for the introduction to the Wall of Honor, but we have a second award, a Parsons College Spirit Award. And John was the only person to receive recognition at both levels, both of the Wall of Honor and the Spirit Award. And so that puts him at the pinnacle of our alumni, because no one else has both of those plaques on their wall. So Spirit Award and Wall of Honor speaks volumes to his way of carrying forward the mission of Parsons College.
John's action earned him that award in addition to the Wall of Honor, which is basically presented to people who've had an exemplary over and above career in business and also in the social community giving and so forth. John was a champion and a symbol of giving is better than getting. And you give a little and you get a lot, and he was a master of that. absolutely, for sure, no question. And as I would kind of wrap it up on my part here, I would say that as the years grew, our friendship grew and grew and grew, and this is one funeral, celebration, whatever, that we definitely did not want to miss. John, like I say, he must have had a Rolodex of people and friends and whatever, because he also knew that to have friends and friendships and lasting friendships, you had to work them. Well, I think John had this Rolodex going 24/7, and he was calling somebody all the time. He was always genuinely interested in what you did and what you're doing, and he always had a little bit of advice if, in fact, you left it open to get that advice. So as the years grew, the friendship grew, and I'm going to miss those hello, John, BLA, and I'm going to miss giving back the hello, John, BRAD. I'm going to miss those phone calls just hugely, big time, big time, big time.
One of his last outreach efforts, there is a group in Fairfield called Fairfield Productions, and they're putting together a series of films from the beginning of Fairfield, and there is a 5th film that will be started shortly here called Parsons College. John was beating the drum for that, and he reached out to all of our alumni board, and to my recollection, each member of this Parsons College Alumni Association has made a generous donation toward the production of the film Parsons College. Yeah. And John had a little contest. He always liked to have an edge on things, and he was working on a fellow who's on the board that lives in New Jersey, and he said, you know, if you'll give this amount, you know, I'll try and match it. Well, the fellow says, I'm going to write a check for $1,000. So John Braidwood, $1,001 was his check. He always liked to say, I can do it a little bit better on that. So Jason Strong is doing our video today. He was very much involved in each of our Wall of Honors, providing the video and the recording that we could have for posterity. We sat last night and looked at the 2018, which was our last Wall of Honor induction, and we're very, very grateful for Jason being here today, hopefully making us look good, and so you folks in upstate New York can appreciate what we're doing here.
And also, we got to say, Dick DeAngelis, who Jason works with, helping and allowing the situation to happen too. Dick is the one doing the history of, he and Jason, the history of Fairfield, and they're just very generous people, and they're very effective, and they're very good. And like Dave said, we hope they make us look good. My last parting comment is I'm so sorry to the family, Clint, Chad, Barbara, Susan, Valerie, that we could not be there. But I hope you enjoy and see the love and affection we had for our dear friend and your father, whatever. I hope you see and feel that, because right now, this is John Braidwood. This is John Braidwood's day. This is John Braidwood's chair. He was our friend, our buddy, and whatever. Thank you, Jason, and I hope you get to see the film here and whatever, and enjoy it.
We would like to close out. As I mentioned, we had a Zoom conference call for our quarterly meeting. Those folks who are in attendance, there is a video that will be as part of this presentation. There were a couple people that were unable to be on that conference call, and so I would like to read one, and then John has one that we will present from Parsons College Alumni Association members. Dr. Biff Coomer. John Braidwood. John was my friend. We talked on somewhat regular basis, and each communication was one of warm fellowship, respect, brotherhood. Two things stand out about John. Number one, he was honest. Number two, he respected all others. Never in the 55 plus years of our friendship did I ever hear him badmouth another person. John gave respect and held respect of those he knew. When John shook your hand, it was his contract. He did what he said he would do with both commitment and zeal. He had a zest for life and for involvement in and around things that would normally would benefit others. A quiet, caring man who possessed a huge sense of humor and insight. Most of all, John was a gentleman. He was the personification, I'm going to say that again, personification of another time where manners and hard work were the norm. John is a memory to me now, but that memory is alive and active in my own ID. He was, is, and will continue to be a close and trusted brother of mine, one of the truly few. My deepest love to you, John, now and always. Biff Coomer.
Wow, that's great. Can add the word charismatic to that too. Yeah, for sure. My note here is from Mr. Ray Ham, a Fairfield resident and board member. Ray writes, Parsons College, which was also known as PC for Parsons College for those who attended. And he worked off these two letters, a P and a C. For the P, John demonstrated his professionalism in his business world and dealings, and former classmates and professors of Parsons College. I find it interesting to watch John interact with people who attended the Wall of Honor events, and how he happily was able to share his Parsons stories and listen to their Parsons stories. John, being from upper state New York, had an accent of a New Yorker, which you could not miss when you were around him. For the C part of the PC Parsons College, one could not miss how committed he was to his family and his personal life, and especially his commitment to the Parsons College family. Roughly 2 weeks prior to his untimely passing, he called me to talk about the upcoming Parsons College film and how excited he was about this undertaking and how committed he was trying to raise funds to help its success. He further stated that this was a great opportunity to see how a great institution was operating and what it provided to the students that attended Parsons College. In closing, John truly was a great ambassador to represent Parsons College and to carry that tradition up and on until he left us. Signed, Ray Ham, Jr.
My exposure to John has been pretty darn positive. He was actually ahead of me in the college arena, and my contacts with him were moreover during the formation of this association than anything prior to that. He really did exercise an extraordinary benefit to me in a spirit, in resolute and perseverance in making this whole concept of reunion, Parsons, keep it alive, that I appreciated. I remember the day that we met, you and I, David, with John at, I think, Walton Club for a little planning session out there. And that was the beginning of my very positive impression of him. He's since, as to many of the rest of our group, made numerous contacts with me to help me out of a slump that perhaps I was experiencing with an issue or another with the Parsons activity. And he was very comforting and very directing, and I was just real appreciative of him. And I will miss him, and I appreciate the opportunity to send this message along.
Well, John was one guy, one of a kind, and he was my confidant that I could go to when I needed advice on anything or anyone. And he was always there for me, and I seemed to be always there for him when he needed a shoulder to cry on or advice from me as well. And he's greatly missed, and he added a lot to this board, and it's hard to believe that he's gone, and he's probably in a better place than the rest of us at this point. But he will definitely be missed next year at the 2023 reunion. So Rest in peace, John.
It was almost fate in that, other than being on with our meetings and on screen with us, every now and then or occasionally I would get a call, and it was usually during dinner time, and at least here. And I would often say to Nance that John knows when we're eating dinner, because any other time he has trouble getting through to me, and he would always call the cell phone. That's the number that he had. And we talked much about the reunion that was coming up next October in 2023, and he had wonderful plans, as do we. And in fact, as I had mentioned earlier, that he had done a little bit of research on our son, and he said, isn't it, and I asked why he would be so cerebral to think about this. He said, it just goes to show that you, meaning I and Nancy, went to a second chance college. And he said, but look, he said, you had a son who, and our son, I'm not bragging, but he went to Penn, and then he went to the London School of Economics, and he's driven. He's driven, and he now teaches at Cornell. And John knew from following him on Facebook, although our son doesn't do a whole lot, but his students do, he used the Parsons College approach to teaching. He had his own, there they call them teaching assistants, who would do tutoring, and he did the large lectures, and he would have a graduate student who would do the precept sessions, and he would provide free tutoring for his students at Cornell. And John knew this. And I did ask how, and he said, well, I follow him on LinkedIn, and I follow him on Facebook and so forth. And as I had mentioned earlier again, he said, I really want to talk to him if that's okay, because I want to find out whether his knowledge of Parsons had an effect on the way he teaches. And it never got that far, because on that conversation, that was, I would say, within about 2 weeks of learning of John's passing. And just the conversations we had, they were not always about Parsons, but about family. And I didn't know him as well as I know some of those who are on the screen right now, and others from Parsons, but I found it fascinating that he took an interest, I know it wasn't just our family, but an interest on everyone who's on the screen right now. And that's the memory that I have of John, particularly that conversation. And I think back, I said, it's really a shame that we didn't do it on the screen, because I would have recorded it. And again, we talked about all of our successes and the fact that Parsons College is in our blood. And that's my memory of him. And I'm like Nancy and others. There have been other, we'll say, classmates from Parsons, but I would say almost on a regular basis, just what Nancy W. said. I said, I keep thinking he's still here, and I want to pick up the phone and call him as if he were a family member. And that's the impression he made on me. And I'm not being trite when I say that. I really consider everyone on the screen and others who are family members, and just feel so close when you think some of us, we haven't seen each other face to face for a while now. But that's my memory of him, just a wonderful human being. And the other thing I said, maybe you heard it too, I said in the conversations I had with him, I never heard a foul word. And sometimes I've been pretty good on here and all. Sometimes, once in a while, I might say something worse than hell or damn. Not the big one, but you know what I'm saying. He never. I never heard him say anything, and he really cared when he talked. And it wasn't just you could tell he really cared. So that's my memory of John.
Upstate family, New York. We love you. We wish we could be with you, but here, this is a piece that you can share, folks who are there, folks who are coming. But it's our way of saying thank you for sharing John with us over the last 19 plus years of my involvement. As Biff says, 55, he remembers him as a student when they were out there together. We were very blessed to have him be a part of our life and to honor Parsons College.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Rest in peace, John Braidwood. Family, we hope you get to look at this piece. And once again, hope you feel our love for John and how much we miss him and are going to miss him. God bless you all.
Peace be with you, and go Wildcats. There was a fellow named Lee Gobble that said there will always be a Parsons College, and that's been our mission.
And thanks to John Braidwood, that mission is more secure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.